ক্ষীরময় সিন্ধু যেমা জীব বন্ধু তুম্হে তো জগতপতি। The Western band folk which has been imposed has created. ସାପକୁ କୋଉ ଗୀତ ବଜେଇକି ମୋହିତ କରୁଛନ୍ତି? To my utter surprise they are playing Odissi. କାହିଁ ଗଲେ ମୁରଲି ଫୁଙ୍କା, very well known.
Okay.
So ସାଇ ମନ ରିପୋର୍ଟ names.
It's written in the manuscripts.
The traditional
Wow.
bomb names and I am afraid we have lost forms that we don't even know we have lost. ଛାଡ଼
Okay.
ଛାଡ଼ ବୋଲି କାହାର ଆଜ୍ଞା? ବୀର ଚୁଡ଼ଙ୍ଗ ଦେବଙ୍କ କୋଟି କୋଟି ଆଜ୍ଞା. Our visual imagination is utterly western now. It's photographic.
They say if you don't know history, you don't know anything. It is like a leaf that doesn't know it is part of a tree. Namaskar, my name is Patit Mandal. Joining us today is someone who's not just singing about culture, he's digitizing it, documenting it, and downright reviving it. He is a vocalist, a researcher, and a storyteller. So buckle up and let's start today's podcast with none other than Pratik Patnaik, the modern day archivist Odisha didn't know it desperately needed. Welcome Pratik Babu to our Orissa Post podcast. We are very happy to host you and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the kind introduction.
So Pratik Babu, before moving into the podcast, it is my personal urge and I can't control it that to request you to start this podcast with a Odissi song.
Okay. As is in tradition, I'll sing a Janana.
Of course.
Because it's considered a good start.
Of
Mangala Charana.
Of course.
This is written by Kavi Surya Baladev Ratha.
Okay.
ক্ষীরময় সিন্ধু যেমা জীববন্ধু তুম্হে তো জগতপতি, set to the raga Anand Bhairavi and Tala Ekotali. Popularly known as the ক্ষীরময় সিন্ধু যেমা জীববন্ধু, that is কেকি কলা মুন কলি।
Wow.
କେକି ଦେଲା ଅବା ମୁଅବା ନ ଦେବା ଘେନି ଏତେ ସରି ହେଲି, ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କୁ କହୁଛନ୍ତି। set to ଆନନ୍ଦ ଭୈରବୀ ଏକତାଳି। ক্ষীরময় সিন্ধু যেমা জীব বন্ধু তুম্হে তো জগতপতি। টেকি সমদৃষ্টি পতাকাকু পুণি, টেকি সমদৃষ্টি পতাকাকু পুণি, একি পক্ষ পাত রীতি হে মহা প্রভু কেকি কলা মুন কলি, হে মহা প্রভু কেকি দেলা অবা মুঅবা ন দেবা ঘেনিয়েতে সরি হেলি, হে মহা প্রভু কেকি কলা মুন কলি। You got it?
Wow.
କେକି ଦେଲା ବା ମୁଁ ବା ନ ଦେବା,
Yeah.
ଆଉ କିଏ କ'ଣ ଏମିତି ଦେଲା ଯାହା ମୁଁ ଦେଲି ନାହିଁ, ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ମୋର ଏତେ ଖରାପ ଅବସ୍ଥା ହେଲା।
Wow, man. Mesmerizing.
Has anybody offered you a bribe? That
Yeah,
is Odia
yeah.
culture.
I don't think there could have been a better start to this podcast other than this. Brief us about a basic thing about Odissi music that every Indian must know. And tell us about what is that one thing about Odissi music that touches you on a soul level that other genres maybe don't.
Of course, to each their own. The country has had different subcultures. India, the Indian subcontinent in fact, has had different subcultures. And there are some cultures within the country which are very, very ancient and have their own independent way of expression with regard to all of the media of expression. You know, there's the visual media, there is the oral form. Likewise, in Odisha, you have independently existing and stylistically novel. Very indigenous, very organic in the local expression. You have a form of sculpture, you have a form of painting, patachitra, you have indigenous cuisine that's entirely governed by different rules. Similarly, you have a musical form. And this musical form is, of course, classical because it has its own treatises, it has its own technical tradition. That's what you call classical. No? When you have the indigenous tools in order to analyze the form, you call a form classical.
Okay.
It has the tools that are required to dissect the form. That's basically it. So we all of us know of North Indian classical music, which is called Hindustani, and South Indian, which is called Carnatic.
Yes.
And similarly, the East Indian form is called Odissi because the main center of Odissi music was the Jagannath temple of Puri.
Okay.
Because it was considered a part of his daily seva to sing in front of the deities when they are woken up and when they go back into their slumber.
It is part of the niti.
It is
right?
part of the daily niti,
Yes.
at least since the time of Kabiraja Jayadeva's Gita Govinda, which is 800 years old.
Okay.
So it's a continuing tradition from 800 years old, which is very, very rare in the Indian subcontinent. You have many traditions, but it's a documented 800 years of continuous tradition. In that sense, it has its own qualities that are rooted in the indigenous forms of Odishan musical expression, like the Andolita, which is a form of it's a very rounded way of embellishment that is used when we sing. You must have marked when you sing Keki de la this
Yeah.
These things are very typical quintessential Odisha.
Okay.
And these kinds of embellishments, you find their visual counterparts in the Odishan sculpture and painting, patachitra. That's how widespread that aesthetic vision and how unified, harmonious that aesthetic stand is. So that's what, to each region of the country, they have their own aesthetic school, which gives rise to their local forms of painting, music and everything, expression. Likewise, we have an Odishan form of expression, which just goes on to prove how old this region is, how old a culture, Odia culture is. Because by the time of Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra, you find reference to Udra Magathi.
Yeah.
So which is 2000 years old. And the first word is Udra, which is Odisha. And they've mentioned the limits of the Odishan musical and dance forms, that style, so which goes as far as Nepal and Myanmar and northern Andhra Pradesh, which is part of Kalinga then. So that's what we should be very proud that we have this completely
Of course, we should be very, very
indigenous
proud.
and
Yep.
codified form.
Yes, of course. Pratik Babu, you were born in Koraput, and this district is rooted in tribal culture. So, can you share any anecdote or any childhood memories that sparked you that an inner fascination with folklores or Odissi music?
So Koraput is home to some of the oldest tribes in the world.
Yes.
And some of the oldest tribes in India, naturally. So my grandfather was one of the initiators of tribal research in our state. Dr. P.C. Mahapatra, the founder of the Council of Analytical Tribal Studies.
Oh my God.
My maternal grandfather was one of the founding fathers of the discipline of tribal research in our state. So I remember him telling anecdotes about going to the villages of the Bondas, one of the earliest tribes.
Okay.
He was one of the first people to be let into the Bonda villages. So in our home, we have grown up with this many layers of culture. No, in Odisha, you like late Guru Deva Prasad Das of Odissi dance used to say. He used to say Tridhara. So there are three parallel streams running across the Odishan culture, the cultural scenario, which is there is tribal culture, there is folk culture, and then there is classical culture.
Okay.
And they are not contradicting each other, which is very, very unique.
Okay, they are not contradicting.
They're
each
not
other.
contradicting each other because, of course, the tribal culture is the root of everything.
Okay.
So in our home, I've always been taught that respect, although my ancestors of our family come from Ganjam.
Okay.
So from the courtly, princely areas of Ganjam, from Ghumusar and Jaipur, they were affiliated with the courts. And they had the task of basically elaborating the Odia Puranas. So they were educators of the past, because that is what was considered moral education, and all other kinds of education would be given in that format, and they were of course sung, because the oral medium was the primary medium of communication then. So we have that very classical kind of culture in our home, in our way of speaking, way of singing. Yet at the same time, in our home, we have been taught to respect tribal culture to the utmost level, in recognition of the fact that they are the original culture, in recognition of the fact that they are the earliest inhabitants of this piece of land.
Yes, yes.
And whatever it's like you have a purified mineral,
Yeah.
but the ore is to be respected.
Yes, of
Without
course.
that, you are nowhere.
Yeah.
So we have been encouraged to look at that essential ore that
Yeah.
lies in the tribal forms.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be codified to the extent this classical culture is very, very codified. The culture from the Eastern Ganga dynasty,
Yeah.
the clarity that you see in the sculpture,
Hmm.
the precision with which you see the motifs are embellished, that the same clarity you find in Odissi music, in medieval Odia literature. Tribal languages, on the other hand, are still not properly documented. There are no dictionaries.
Yeah.
There are only beginning attempts in order to form Odia to the tribal language dictionaries, and there are so many in our state.
Yeah.
Many of them don't have scripts.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they, just because they're not codified doesn't mean they're some of the earliest forms of the
Pratibha,
of
if I am not
expression.
wrong, Odisha has the highest varieties of tribals in India. It has the maximum varieties.
Some Koraput again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and also because of that, the indigenous systems of paddy cultivation.
Yep.
The wide variety of musical instruments that you find in the tribal people of Koraput, the wide variety of constructions of musical instrument of very primitive kind. So the primitive thing that you find with the tribes is very important to know. Unless you know where the thing has come from, you will not appreciate the codified form, because you don't know where the material is coming from. In that sense, it is very, very essential. So that's what my grandfather would say, that in order to appreciate Odisha fully, you must know these three parallel streams.
Can I know his name? What was his name? Your
Dr.
grandfather?
Prafulla Chandra Mahapatra.
Okay. So, Pratibha, you have a degree, a master's degree in.
A short add-on. And
sure.
We were taught to look at tribal culture with the same seriousness with which we look at classical culture,
That's very important.
which is something that is very, very rare.
Yeah.
And to give it the same high pedestal that we often give to classical culture. We are very, very obsessed with our
Yeah.
classical form. Look, we have
Yeah.
highly codified form. We were taught to consider them at the same level, to not do this up and down that the Western binary of classical and folk, which has been imposed, has created. Classical, in my terminology, I am only using it to mean codified, which is the literal translation of Shastriya. I am not using it in the Western sense of the term, which has since been disregarded by scholars all over the world,
Okay.
because it creates this artificial hierarchy that never existed in India in the first place.
Okay.
That's all. That's all I have to say.
Pratibha, you have a master's degree in physics, and you are archiving culture in the state. So, and you are a trained musician, Odissi musician. So, physics and music. How does these two worlds collide in your life, or ever in your life did these two things complement each other?
No, they've always complemented each other.
Physics and music, right?
Yes, physics, of course, is essentially. I was very much into acoustics and all that. Acoustics, electronics always fascinated me, and I was more concerned about the theoretical physics side of things than the mathematical side, which although I was good at, I was more interested in, the kind of understanding the world as it is. So physics did equip me with the tools and the mindset required to properly dissect a form. So when I talk about music, there is the wide work of collecting traditional compositions, which are, as I keep saying, tangible heritage receives much more attention than intangible heritage, which is this.
Yep.
And some parts of India have been very proactive in collecting both and conserving both. Other parts not so much. Odisha would fall in the latter. because we've not been that conscious in conserving our, say, the musical form, collecting compositions. Although the musical form is preserved, the way of singing and the method of singing, lots of traditional compositions that were popular, because you must recognize, as in the 1900s, the sole form of musical expression was Odissi music.
Okay.
Apart from tribal music and Odia folk music, Loko Sangita, Shastriya Sangita, Adivasi Sangita. And I say that very, very respectfully, that these three are the only indigenous modes of musical expression. So the minds of the people of that time, many of whom were not exposed to the musical forms outside their own state, because before the radio and the shellac records, gramophone, you didn't have much scope unless you've travelled, and to travel you needed to be one of the elite.
Yeah.
And later, after the British came, the elite gradually got exposed to, the British band music and all that. But before that, the sole form of expression is one of these three.
Yep. Yeah.
And of them, it's like Pattachitra, no? It's the only visual media. So portraits were being made in the Pattachitra formats. So the Gajapati kings would commission their own portraits. In fact, we have one of the earliest Pattachitras surviving from 1550, which depicts a group of people from another country at the Gajapati's court.
Oh my God. That's
so
rare.
it's a convoy meeting the Odisha court. So you see, even the idea of portraiture was confined to the Pattachitra idiom, because
that painting is in State Museum?
It is in the Ashutosh Museum in Kolkata.
Okay.
It's 1550.
Okay.
And you see people with
they've
drawn people of a very fair complexion with red beards and wearing long robes with patterns that are very reminiscent of Islamic patterns. So it seems like a convoy from one of the Islamic countries. And when you see that, it strikes you, because usually you are just exposed to seeing Pattachitra of the gods and all that, divine subjects. But these forms were so organic in their expression that people used to use them universally in their expression. So realistic expression would also be modeled through that form, which is very, very difficult for people of our generation to digest, because we are used to the photographic kind of reproduction, which is itself very Western. Similarly, when the Simon Commission came, the songs that were sung by Odia people to rebel against the commission were set to the Odissi form.
Okay. What was the song that
they are on record? There were many songs, even the First World War song. Kahi gole muroli phunka, very well known.
Okay.
Sai mona report lekha, that's what they would sing.
Yeah.
So that is interesting now, because we no longer are used to those forms in that organic level.
Yeah.
It is like that's the only way of expression they had. So that's what we should be conscious about.
Absolutely.
So this physics helps appreciate these kinds of things and dissect the forms with care, especially the technical part of the things. When I speak about the Andolita, it's very, as a elementary student of physics will also grasp that it's a sine wave, which is something very, very obvious. So science allows you a precision in expression that allows you to define the form in a much more unambiguous manner. So that's what science has given me, the toolkit to take the data and technically analyze it.
Yeah.
And that collection is what I strive to do. Because there were these lakhs of songs and crores of songs, of which now you listen to 500, 1000 songs.
Yeah.
No, 1000 songs is a lot. But compared to the repertoire in the 1900s, it's still tiny.
Of course.
So there's a lot that has been lost. And this is the story in every part of the country. We have lost so much that we don't even appreciate how much we have lost. So therefore, we must keep collecting whatever we can find, because we can't resurrect music from the manuscript.
Yeah.
It's near impossible. Doable, but near impossible. But we must want to preserve the organic tradition while it is still alive, and which is a ticking, will go away any moment.
Do you think our ancestors were better storytellers than we are today?
Of course, in a way, because it all goes back to the same point. They were rooted in their own indigenous idiom and saw it as their natural mode of expression. We, on the other hand, now are stuck between the Western world and the Eastern world.
Yeah.
some of us look at some things of the Eastern form as our natural form of expression. In other areas, we will look at the Western form as the natural form of expression. As I was saying, our visual imagination is utterly Western now. It's photographic because we are bombed with photographs.
Yeah.
It's completely photographic. It's not the idealistic form that our ancestors used to be. Now, the forms of ancient Odisha had an underlying philosophical unity because they arose from the same group of people sharing the same worldview. Now, our worldview is all too dispersed. Now, there's something of this, something of that. It's not very unified. It's not very, it's not in harmony. The forms are not in harmony. The way we frame sentences now in Odia, if you look at many people of my generation, the syntax is of English, the framing is in Odia. So this is because we are confused between the two worlds.
Yeah.
So if you're utterly rooted in the English idiom, you will express better because the technical vocabulary, terminology of the English language has to derive from the artistic forms and the musical forms of the West. Similarly, so for Odia. That's the thing. Because we are not immersed in all of the forms equally, that automatically makes us inferior storytellers.
Yeah.
You have stories of the past, no? You have stories of the 18th century.
Yeah.
Where red will be referred to as hingula.
Okay.
Because hingula is the pigment vermilion which is used in Patachitra.
Yeah.
So the term hingula now becomes very alien to people when you say something is a hingula.
Yeah, I think most of us we don't know what
that's the
Hingula
problem.
means.
Now, we don't know our own visual
Yeah.
medium. When you use imagery telling a story, you will derive from the Western painting form. That automatically makes it a lot more problematic because there is no word in Odia for shading,
Okay.
which is obvious. There is no shading in
Yeah.
our forms.
Of course.
There is a word in Odia which distinguishes between the thin outline and the thick outline. There is no dedicated word in English for that.
Yeah.
You'll have to say fine line. So because the Western art forms don't deal with line in a sense, as this was told to be by artist and Bada Bhai, Bibhu Bhaina, Bibhu Patnaik, artist based in, is an expert in the Patachitra tradition. He's an artist based in New Delhi. So he will often say that there are no dedicated words to define the finer lining in the English terminology, which we have in the
Odia terminology.
Odia painters terminology, the Patachitra painters terminology.
Yeah.
So there is that gap. So unless you use the native terminology, the storytelling will never achieve that level. And because of that gap, we don't even appreciate our own documented stories from the past because it has become too distanced. Just like Patachitra now is only a thing that you buy and frame and put it in your home for. Whereas earlier it was used universally, which we still know. Na? Amara Rakhya Panchami. On the day of Rakhya Panchami, on the doors of the homes, the local Chitrakara will come and draw the Patachitra of Ekapada Bhairava.
Okay.
And paintings are considered disposable in that sense.
Okay.
Disposable, na? Because it's the popular media. It's the popular media. It's always, renewal is always going on to ensure the form survives. All the painting on the door frames of the homes, as your generation also must have seen, the paintings during weddings used to be in pure Patachitra idiom. Now they're all in a mixed medium. You did not have popular album prints or lithographs of deities, Hindu deities, to worship in your puja room. So you would get wooden boards of this side, which would be, canvas would be put on top, and on top of that painting would be done. That Patachitra wooden block would be kept in the puja room.
Yeah.
Now you don't find that in homes.
That's sad.
So it is gone from that natural level of existence into something very showcase-like, just into the museum. Just something to show to the camera, this is our culture, but it doesn't survive at that level in most homes. It survives in a few homes, and to them I'm utterly grateful. We should be utterly grateful for preserving that old way of living. But it comes with a lot of trade-offs. The old way of coexisting comes with a lot of challenges. No, you have to renew the painting. That's an added task that nobody wants in this modern world. Nobody has time for that. So that's exactly what has happened.
In your journey of documentation, what is the strangest thing you have digitized?
Strangest.
Or what is
Strangest
that
as
one thing
in-
you never expected?
I'll tell you. Once I went to Patia, which is home to a lot of snake charmers, traditionally home to several sects of the snake charmer society as well. So there is one group among the snake charmer community, the Kela Sampradaya, who are experts in playing the Nageshwari. Nageshwari is a wind instrument of the snake charmer community, indigenous. So we are all exposed to the images of the North Indian bean playing
Yeah.
sapera and that familiar tune. Now my curiosity of course was, what do these people play to the snakes? ସାପକୁ କୋଉ ଗୀତ ବଜେଇକି ମୋହିତ କରୁଛନ୍ତି? To my utter surprise, they are playing Odissi
Okay.
and pura classical,
Wow.
no compromise. Now the raga Ananda Bhairavi happens to be one of the most universally known tunes in Odishan culture, which is the tune I sang in the beginning.
Okay.
কিশো ভাগো কুঞ্জে মদন মোহন. So this is what that fellow is playing to the snake.
Wow. That's
I
nice.
was very surprised, and they are dealing with it in a very classical manner. They're not casual. It's dealt with very seriously, perhaps because it hails from the Shakta tradition and the Shaiva tradition, the Tantric tradition, which makes you very, very serious and concerned about if something goes wrong. Then, so that mindset leads people to be utterly conservative and careful about traditional forms, which has persisted. But the Nageshwari is slowly dying.
Yeah,
in
that's
Patia,
sad.
and it's not surviving.
Hmm.
It's not that well known now, and there are very few players of that caliber. This I think I saw in 2017-18.
Okay.
So, and this tune is so popular that the Odisha government would use it during BPL campaigns.
Like?
The BPL Yojana was sung in
Okay.
this tune.
Okay.
When the Hirakud Dam was constructed, there were songs written in this tune to tell to the people, Hirakud is for your benefit.
Okay.
And the government wants. When the First World War was going on, there were songs sung to this tune, saying you must go to war. When Gandhi came,
Mm-hmm.
songs were sung in this tune to welcome Gandhi. So that's how popular it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the pop tunes of the old generation. When you look at this, you realize, okay, this classical can be popular also because you have no other form of expression that is indigenous. And it's all these forms that have come later, like the concept of modern music, which is derived from a mixture of all of these forms, from the indigenous and the non-indigenous. And those forms have taken over our popular imagination so much that these forms have become alienated. So that's the sad part. But the serpent thing takes the cake for me.
Yeah. The crux
And
is.
there's no recording.
Yeah.
Who is going to document this? Who is going to a serpent village and going to think that what this snake charmer is playing is also an important part of the tradition? This has been done in parts, but it's there is a lot more left to do.
Hmm.
If at all it has been done in areas of Odisha that are very, very accessible.
Hmm.
For a snake charmer in Parala Khemundi, or in Western Ganjam Ghumusara,
Hmm.
or in Western Odisha, say Balangir or Kandhamad, or in Anugul or Khadiyal, the parts that were separated from us, where culture is dying an even faster death because it's under the other non-Odisha governments.
Hmm.
Parts of northern Andhra Pradesh are totally Odia speaking villages that were separated from Odisha during the state formation. Who is going to take care of those? There's literally no documentation.
Okay.
If at all you have anything, it's 50-100 pages of written
Hmm.
reminiscence. You have no visual documentation. You have no audio documentation. If at all you have, the tapes are not conserved well.
Hmm.
As in the All India Radio, a reputed institution which will issue archival recordings of North Indian and South Indian musicians, which are in their archives recordings from the 1970s. But there is no equivalent proactive step in order to publicly issue recordings of East India,
Got it.
of Odisha,
Hmm.
to be very, very specific. There are recordings from the 1970s. But there's no concern. The tapes will simply die.
Hmm. Hmm.
They'll become defunct because there are no dedicated, even if there are preservation attempts, it's always at a backlog. compared to the rest of India. The preservation is at a backlog, which leads to more destruction. If it is preserved, the digital archiving is not properly done, so you can't access. It is not put out by these national institutions publicly. You will find recordings of the North Indian archival recording. You will find by hundreds online, released for free.
Okay.
We have no idea about what was recorded. There is no proper catalogue in this part of the country, and nor are there any efforts to do that. And I'm guessing it's the same with many other regional forms. I won't take names, but there are several other indigenous music traditions in our country, like that of Assam. So, which is more or less the same. It's even if there are efforts, it's not on the same level,
Yep.
which just leads to more decadence.
Yeah.
Because our own generations are not exposed to what our own predecessors have sung.
Pratik Babu, do you have that fear that despite all your documentation efforts, some tradition might vanish from our culture?
No, they've already vanished.
Okay.
Several
That's
of
sad.
them have already vanished.
Hmm.
In the,
Like,
in Bichin and Chodana, the parts of Odisha separate, they've already vanished in many of those villages.
Mhm.
There is a Krishna Lila that was in vogue in Paralakyamundi until 1970-80, which has since then completely vanished.
it is not there anymore.
It is not there, perhaps. See, this is I can't tell that there is absolutely nobody, but it is based on my personal surveys because I have nothing else to rely on.
Okay.
So, how far can you survey as an individual using a group of friends or acquaintances? You can go far into, you can talk about 30, 40, 50 villages.
Of course.
If you don't find anything within that range,
It's a sizable number. If it is not there in 50 villages, and
it's concerning.
yeah,
It's very, very concerning that a form that was there in a place like Paralakyamundi, it's a district headquarters, has just vanished from a place which has a lot of patronage and everything. Despite that, the form has vanished. Because there are no more people left to patronize this many forms. And it's a similar story in many other places. I am afraid we have lost forms that we don't even know we have lost.
Yeah.
Who has made a list of forms? We say Ramolila. Ramolila is there in 300 villages. There are 100 different forms, 100 different groups of songs written by 100 different composers. It is like a person in this village writes 300 songs which are sung by 10 group of villages around that village.
Yeah.
The Ramolila that exists 100 km away is a completely different. It is not the same form. This form might be of 1900, that form might be of 1500.
Yeah.
There has to be a differential outlook when you have limited resources to conserve. Of course, you will prioritize the older form. Now, what if you have lost the older form? That has happened.
Yeah.
This is what concerns me when I collect songs. Once I went to a village in Ganjam, and to my utter surprise, they are singing a song from 1550. Mukunda Devankar.
Okay.
Gajapati Mukunda Devankar Bhanita Taiki.
Mhm.
So, which is not something you expect in any part of the country. If you go collecting songs, you will find the bulk of the repertoire is from 1800s, 1750, max 1700s. The musical repertoire that you can confirm is in conformity with the original composer's musical melodic form.
Yeah.
Of course, we are putting random tunes and singing songs from the 12th century also. So, in Odisha, you find a few songs of the Gita Govinda preserved in that, which big deal. 800-year-old song preserved exactly is very, very rare in India. But you realize in the court of Prataprudra Deva, Kapilendra Deva, Purushottama Deva, there were songs being sung when they returned from victory campaigns.
Can you recite any of them?
No, I have not learned a full one. It's that rare.
Okay.
It's that rare.
Okay.
I have heard them partially.
Okay.
I'm trying to collect the full, but it's almost.
It would be great if you get any of
it's
this.
almost impossible.
Okay.
And they are very, very different. They're very slow.
I just hope that in some village, in some corner of a room, it might get stored and you can
it
just
requires
archive
an
it.
effort across the.
It requires
these
an effort.
things are very difficult to.
Yeah.
You have some tangible evidence of printed books from the early 1900s. You have palm leaf manuscripts. You have shellac records that are being destroyed by the dozens in homes when people are just throwing them away. Vinyl shellac records, lacquer record from the 1910s, 20s. The earliest Odia gramophone record from 1906 has been found, but in that session there were several other, at least 10 more records done, none of which have been found. Right.
Understood.
So there's no effort. This is all because this is happening very, very late in our state.
Hmm.
What should have been done in the 1930s was started in the 1960s or 50s.
Yeah.
And by the time the government jumps onto the bandwagon, it's already at a backlog of several decades. And so you will not find the media. That's what is sad. If you had records from, you have records from 1906, imagine. Transfers of cylinder records from 1899.
Yeah.
1819, one of the first languages to be recorded
Yeah.
using Western technology on wax cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if people are not concerned, this requires, this what you were saying, culture conscious people actively working for this for every group of 10-20 villages.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will never be able to conduct a full survey. Whatever I've chanced upon is just by sheer luck.
Okay.
It is by sheer luck and just volume of effort. If you go to 500 villages, you will find something in 50 villages. It is just by coincidence in that sense. It is not because I have a proper directory and that is not done. And
But whatever you do, it's a tiring job. It's not just luck, it's your hard work
tiring
also.
and it's difficult to sustain because
Of
at a
course.
point you don't get information from
Yeah,
the
of course.
villages. You get information, survey data. Some acquaintance calls you and tells in that village there is a 90-year-old who knows this form. Now you have to go and investigate personally because it is a technical form and unless you go, who will tell me setre kou raga achi? What ragas that form has? There are 400 songs in a Ramalila of Chikkiti Godo in Ganjam. Now that is one of the oldest Ramalilas of our state, which was known across the state as Dakshini Ramalila, one of the most difficult classical music based Ramalilas. Now when I look at it is not been published since the early 1900s. Now when I go to the State Museum and look at the palm leaf manuscript, I see there are rare ragas in this. The raga structures dating back to the 1700s, 1600s. Now of course there is a chance the form might survive, there is a chance the form might not survive, there is a chance the form might be corrupted and survive, which again is of no use. Now in order to find an authentic expression of the song written in the 1700s, you need 10 people of that form. Someone of that will be singing very casually. Someone will be preserving the archaic form. It is like Padma Shri Guru Gopinath Swami, who I met 3-4 years ago, has preserved his 108 years as of now.
Okay.
Oldest recipient of Padma Award. So when I went to his village, he has preserved raga forms dating back to 1700s, which you don't expect because he has learned in the early
Wow.
1920s. That's the time. And he has taken care to preserve the form as it is from his own conventional conservative leanings. He has strived to preserve the form as it is. Now, what are the chances of finding? That's what makes this process all the more difficult. That state agencies that that conduct documentation and surveys don't understand the relative age of these forms. I'm not saying the 1900 form is less valuable. I'm saying there have to be more efforts in order to find the 1700 form because it is that much rarer.
Yeah. Yeah.
People's tastes are changing. People no longer have the patience to listen to a song sung in a very archaic kind of manner, which is a phenomenon that I see happening. At one point, what happens is you run out of acquaintances who inform you.
Yeah.
Then what do?
Yeah, that's
You have no other way. I can't go to all villages of South Odisha. That's why I don't go to Western Odisha and Northern Odisha because I have no information about the forms preserved in those places, as well as I have no complete aesthetic understanding of the local subculture of those places. Unless you understand that, you will never understand the form in all its richness. That is the gap.
Pratik Babu, Odisha is filled with so many folklores and stories related to history also. In your opinion, what is that one story or one folklore that can go into a plot for a Netflix series? Like it is so unknown and it is so dramatic.
Chodagangadeva, I'm a big fan of.
Chodagangadeva.
You see, there have been many kings in all of our small estates, princely estates, Godajata, whatever you call it. But then you have few kings who have become almost mythical figures
Yeah.
in popular conception. Now, whether that is completely true or has become kind of a fable is a different matter. The very fact that a king has become the stuff of legend tells you that the king has gained some position in popular imagination, which makes it an already very theatrical plot. Chodaganga Deva is one such figure.
Why is it so?
Because you find contemporary epigraphical evidence, which is from his literally from his own pen. You find evidences of Chodaganga Deva's rule and what he has done, how he has constructed the Puri temple. You find copper plates, you find stone inscriptions. So you have the authentic data, which ensures that you don't get confused by later interpolations of the story. At the same time, you have a living this popular legend, which imagines Chodaganga as a kind of tantric adept.
Okay.
He's imagined as a mystic.
Okay.
As a mystic adept who is so skilled in tantra that with the sheer force of his tantric siddhi, he is able to defeat the enemy.
Okay.
Now that is very, very interesting because that imparts personality to the character. No? Because the stone inscription is very dry. It will tell you what all works he has done. Of course, he was a great scholar as well. He has authored several treatises. He is the scholar king. And here is Chodaganga who is coming and patronizing folk tantra also.
Okay.
Alongside classical tantra. You find ample references to him in the serpent charmers, no? I was talking about snake charmers. When the snake charmers of Odisha will try to remove poison using their spells, which is what they would do in the past because there was no medicine. They say, on the order of Chodaganga Deva, I order the poison to leave the body. Chhad boli kahar agya, biro Chodaganga Devanko koti koti agya.
Okay.
And this makes you
Yeah,
very interesting. He's
course.
so skilled in tantra that by the mere mention of his name, poison has to.
I also find the story of Kapilendra Deva very interesting
Of course,
because at that time,
there's so many stories. The point is you find these certain legends which have both a popular conception as well as contemporary evidence. That is the best zone to work in. Because you don't get distracted because you have proper history as well as you have a character to impart. You have a flesh and blood character who's still living in the minds of the people.
Yeah,
Because
true.
in popular imagination, you don't have they don't know it's 1000 years ago or 100 years ago.
Yeah.
To them, the character is like, Amo Jejebapa koithile. That's all they know. And that makes him very, legend.
Yeah.
Because it has been 1000 years since he's gone. And the fact that people still tell stories about him when grandmothers put their grandchildren to sleep, the story of Chodaganga, which is what has happened in my case. I have listened to that story in that way.
Okay.
That makes him all the more endearing to the people. Which many kings although have great political track records and strategic track records. It all doesn't always translate to this level of popularity.
Yeah.
You find similar popularity for Jajati Kesari of the Kesari dynasty, Chodaganga Deva, Kapilendra Deva, Purushottama Deva, Kanchi Kaveri, Prataprudra Deva to some extent, Languda Narasingha Deva, the Panna story and the Konark story. So that's a Kharavela, of course, was discovered much later. So people nowadays are like, we will do a film on Kharavela. But that requires a lot of research into contemporary evidence that I don't see our movie makers doing. They're utterly clueless about the visual culture of that age.
Yeah.
And it becomes the 1900s. 1900s, there Annapurna theatre, no? You have the 1900s concept of Krishna wearing that Chitralaya crown and painted blue color, mundare gote moiro chuda. So that concept of Krishna, that visual imagination of Krishna is very, very different from how Krishna was imagined in the Ganga times, which you find in the sculpture. It is very much more refined. So that refined culture needs to be represented in popular media for people to understand. But are people willing to invest the time to research that form? Like if they make a film on Kharavela, I doubt they will take the reference of the sculptures in Udaygiri.
Okay.
It's a very different kind of dressing, very different kind of turban. Whether they will invest 1 month into understanding how the turban is tied in that, how it matches with Gupta sculpture of that. Nobody is doing that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You have worked with so many gurus. So, if you don't mind, can you share some scolding if you ever got from any of the gurus? Like you are not doing this correctly or anything. Have you ever been scolded?
Of course, all the time.
Can you name him
My
with respect, of course?
My primary guru, Pandit Ramarao Patra, began teaching me Odissi music after I had learned vocal for some period. He taught me in the traditional pedagogy of the South Odishan school of teaching, which is based in a treatise called Sangita Narayana, 1600s treatise written in Paralakemundi. So that tradition is such that they will teach vocal along with the veena.
Okay.
Incidentally, the veena only survives with my guru right now. He's the only one preserving that instrument. No other people are playing the veena in Odissi music in Odisha.
Okay.
So he began correcting a lot of things because the veena was the traditional, the ruler, like you have a ruler.
Mm-hmm.
It was the technical tool for correcting singing. So he corrected a lot of things because he has grown up in that traditional old system of pedagogy, which was completely uninfluenced by early 1900s developing Western models of syllabus education. This was very different from that. So that was corrected a lot because he would pay very precise attention being a string instrumentalist. I learned a lot of technical vocabulary. And then, of course, we used to sing, but not with the level of consciousness that these did. That's why the archaic traditions, wherever have preserved, exhibit a deal of precision and utter care that is simply too demanding for today's students.
Yeah.
Most of today's students.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons for the archaic methods to get deconstructed into simpler methods, which is also essential for the survival of the form. That has happened everywhere. This must survive side by side somewhere.
Of course.
So my guru will be like, ta, ta. They're very careful. Ta, kamadama, the finer things of the raga, are taken very seriously in the Veena tradition. Which is not taken as seriously in the other tradition because it's a very visual play and sing.
While documenting the folk forms like Prahalada Nataka or Mughal Tamsa, have you come across any artists that has literally struck you, like you're speechless after his or her performance?
I don't call them folk forms also any longer. As I said, there is classical culture, folk culture and tribal culture. There are these three streams. But then all forms that we call folk are not really folk. Some of them are in the continuum between classical and folk. Forms like Prahalada Nataka, which were originally conceived as forms based in classical idiom but have since then decomposed into somewhere in the middle because the performers are not being patronized.
Okay.
In the 1930s, they were patronized by kings and mathas. Now that patronage is no longer there, the scholastic audience is no longer there, which is why the form has decomposed to some extent. But even then, among that lot, you find few artists who are preserving the old form, the artists who are from that era.
Yeah. Can you name some of them?
For example, Guru Simanchada Patra of the Prahalada Nataka tradition. The preserves he's a Sangeet Natak Academy national award, very, very well known. Late Guru Krishna Chandra Kongsari, who passed away, preserved very older ways of singing. And even before them, we have recordings of others who preserved the early 1900s formats. And if you listen to the form as it was sung in the 1960s, as it is sung now, there is absolutely no comparison.
Okay.
Folk forms also have their own sphere within which they are maintained. And there also I'll say it has become decomposed. Danda Natta, I was recently doing a project by the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts with Dr. Ileana Chitaresti on Danda Natta. So we were looking at old tapes of Danda Natta. And the form has completely changed. There was strict grammar ruling what to be done and what not to be done. A lot more of perfectionism was expected from the artists, although they came from rural origins. And as I said earlier, it was much more of a serious affair because people were very fearful of the Kali Tantra and the aspects that surround Danda Natta. Now that base is no longer there. People are very casual. Alcoholism has increased a lot. Patrons are no longer aware of the purity of the form. whoever is performing the form, people are grateful that at least somebody is performing, not that you have to perform properly.
Yeah.
So
the bare minimum effort
our
only.
baseline has reduced a lot. So that's what, so there is absolutely no match. The people of that generation would have simply discarded what is going on now as useless affairs. But still we have to keep the form alive. And the greater problem is, again, the government does not differentiate between artists who preserve the older form, who are conservative, and artists who preserve the modern, more of a decomposed form. Both are reflective of their own time periods in history. But if there is no incentive given to the person who is striving to preserve the correct form,
Yeah.
what difference does it make?
Hmm.
Because the modern form will always be more popular.
Yeah.
In the Radha Prema Leela of Ganjam, I have met older gurus such as Guru Simanchala Mandala, who would sing in a very, very slow manner. And I remember he passed away 2 years ago. When he passed away, his last concern was, ଆମ ପିଲାବେଳେ ଗୀତ ଯେମିତି ଗାଉଥିଲେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆଉ ସେମିତି ବୋଲା ହେବନି, we are forced to sing faster because the village people who are sponsoring are inducing us to sing faster. Nobody has the patience to listen to. That is the tale. And these artists have these qualms which they mention, and nobody takes it seriously.
Pratik Babu, if I ask a hypothetical question, like if you can form a music band with 3 legendary Odissi musicians, alive or dead, who will be those 3?
Oh, that's a band is entirely out of question.
Anyway, if you can, like the artists from the past, if you can any day have a collaboration with them, who would be those 3?
Of course, that's a question like if you had a time machine, who?
Yeah.
So you have records of 1936. You see the level of cultural exchange Odisha that time had. He would come to Satyavadi to teach under Pandit Gopabandhu.
Okay, that's interesting.
To teach music at Satyavadi.
Okay.
And then he would go back. Of course, from what we listen, he's one of our gurus.
Yeah,
the
of
third
course.
generation guru.
Yeah.
Of course, we would like to meet him and Guru's Guru, Acharya Tarini Charana Patra.
Okay.
One of the founding fathers of the early 20th century who had to face the dilemma of codifying the form in a period which was stuck between Western syllabus coming, the Western form of teaching in classroom and the traditional Indian form of Gurukul. So they're stuck in between. You need academic degrees, but of course the traditional form has no degree. You need a degree between 5 years. The traditional discipline says you need 12 years. So that generation I appreciate a lot because they were stuck in a dilemma that we don't appreciate the magnitude of.
Yeah.
Those are some of the people. And
So-
I wish the manuscripts of Kavi Sujya Baladeva Ratha had been preserved.
Yeah.
Because manuscripts from the 1800s, 1850s are preserved widely. But somehow we find many of them have been destroyed in our state.
Oh,
We
that's
don't find
unfortunate.
original handwritten manuscripts of these composers. So if we had original handwriting, we would at least learn something more. We have handwriting of their successors, people from their lineage, but we don't have their own hand,
Yeah.
which is very sad considering 1800 is not that far.
Yeah, got it. So Pratik Babu, let's do a rapid fire round. Let me bring a phone and you just talk your mind as you are doing. So let's start the rapid fire with the first question, and of course you can answer it in one word or you can go into details. And there is no hard and fast rule to it. Okay. So my first question is, if a young student listening to this wants to follow your path, what would it be?
Just start from your own village.
Okay. Yeah.
Ask who are the artists around, go talk to them, record.
Yeah. If you could resurrect one ritual or one instrument, what would it be?
The Bina, which died down in the Puri temple, it was played every single night
Okay.
until the 1940s, after which it has completely vanished.
Yeah. Hypothetically speaking, if your bookshelf is on fire, which 3 books you would save first?
Manuscripts.
What are the manuscripts?
Palm leaf.
Okay.
I have 40-50 manuscripts of my ancestors.
Okay. One Odissi raga that instantly lifts your mood.
Ananda Bhairavi.
Okay.
Traditional favorite, cult classic.
Yeah. A historical figure from Odisha you would love to have a dinner with.
Dinner Kavi Surya.
Kavi Surya Devnath, of course. One cultural place in Odisha everyone must visit before they die.
Cultural place. I would say the Buguda temple, which has murals from the 1800s.
Okay.
I don't know how long it will last, but people should go and have a outlook of how an entire building painted with Patachitra looks like.
Wow, that's fascinating to hear. Okay. Last song you sang that gave you goosebumps.
Just now, Anand.
Okay. Most bizarre or unexpected thing you find during your digitization process?
Bizarre as it.
Bizarre, like you didn't expect that this will.
I once found a manuscript which mentioned how much baruda to use, sulfur, how much sulfur to use in the making of these explosives.
Okay.
Traditional explosives with all the traditional names.
It's written in the manuscripts.
The traditional
Wow.
bomb names and how to
Wow.
baruda keti lagyo, ita keti lagyo.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Biggest myth about Odissi music you would like to burst?
Biggest myth. See, in the early 1950s, many people viewed everything in Odisha as a mix of North and South.
Okay.
Their blanket statement was it is between North India and South India. So it's a mix of North and South. Which is as strange as saying North India is in the middle of East and West India. Therefore, it's a mix of East and West.
Yeah.
That's very untraditional, and these people have tried to swallow almost everything. They've said this for Odissi music, they've said this for Patachitra, they've said this for Kalinga architecture, they've said this for our food, they've said this for our language, all of which have been debunked since then. So that's one thing. Just stop with the vertical hierarchy. I don't know why it has to be vertical.
Yeah, true. If someone gave you rupees 1 crore to preserve a vulnerable folk form, what would it be?
Folk form. Odissi music right now in the villages is preserved by many artists who are simply not receiving patronage.
Yeah.
So that I would separate it. Of course, it sounds exclusionist.
Yeah.
I would prefer to revive the courtly repertoire that I was just talking about, because it is historically an older repertoire.
Yeah.
That's what. Not because of.
Of course. You have 1 hour to teach someone one thing about Odisha's heritage. What would be?
Of course, the music.
Music.
To perceive the music as an organic language.
Yeah. So that is our rapid fire round, and I guess the answers were truly fantastic. So we are moving towards the end of the podcast, and I would like to ask that in the next 50 years, when people look you up in digital archives, what do you hope them to see you? How do you hope them to see your work?
See, my work as an archivist is just an extension of my work as a musician who wants to learn more songs. Because these are all technical disciplines. The music has to be archived by a person who has learned music in that tradition. Otherwise, you won't be able to perceive the nuances of the form in order to document it properly.
Yeah.
I just don't hope it is just about my work. I hope there are people who document all the technical traditions in detail.
Of course.
Like the making of the earthen pots in the Puri temple tradition, each with their own name, each with their own methodology of making. I hope that gets documented. This fireworks, that culture, the culture of making garlands in the Puri temple. Phulaguntha sevaito. There are 50 types of flower garlands, each with their own specific kind of knot.
Wow.
If you do a thesis on flower garland making across the state, you will find hundreds of ancient things.
I don't think...
Ancient wine making. Have you thought
Really?
of that? No, ancient wine making is also a thing. Na?
in Odisha?
Of course. During the Ganga dynasty, there was ancient alcohol.
Okay.
Not for the sake of alcohol.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Traditional brewing methods, traditional names.
Yeah.
And not just from the indigenous tribal communities to this classical culture in the royal centers. I just hope there is work done across these disciplines. Because my work will always remain restricted to the field of music, because that's all I know.
Yeah.
And I will not step out of that. We need more specialized people to traditional ship building.
Yeah.
Work has been. So I can go on because it's a self-sufficient civilization. It has its own take on everything that's required to survive. But we don't give enough. There's documentation at a very gross level. There's not documentation looking at which you can just do it.
Yeah.
We should have documentation of the level that if the form gets extinct, you can revive it just from the data. We don't have documentation of that level. That's the thing.
So finally, what's the next stop for Pratik Patnaik? What's that dream project on the horizon?
Dream project, I'm working on reconstructing a few Beenas that have gone extinct.
Okay.
Not long, since only the 2000. So I would like to construct and get them approved by the old makers while they're still alive, because the last generation of Veena making families are now alive. They're all 75, 80 plus.
Yeah.
After them, people have not seen the indigenous Odia Veena makers don't exist. I would like to, I'm working on to get something made by their hands so that tradition can continue.
Yeah, that's
At least as a token thing.
That's important.
Ideally, there would be a music
Yeah.
museum. The government would sponsor these craftsmen so that it never died. But of course, that requires intervention from greater players at work. It's not an individual effort by any sense.
Of course, and I hope that you succeed in your endeavor. And I must admit that it was a great podcast with you. You have given enough insights that people can go and search them and know about the vulnerable folk forms, the Odissi music, the tradition that we have. And thank you so much for your insights on our podcast. We would love to hear from you in the near future also. This is my personal greed, I would say, that I am really much interested to talk about Kavi Surya Baladev Ratha or Kavi Samrat Upendra Bhanja. So till next time.
Thank you for thinking of that.
Yeah.
Because we don't discuss these people in English as often as we should.
This is Orissa Post, and I can assure you that we will do it. So thank you, Pratik Babu, for coming here, and we will hear from you very soon. Thank you
for having me here.